Welcome to the Innovation Meets Leadership podcast. Real inspiration for real innovators. If you're looking for innovation and leadership transformation, your journey starts now.
Welcome to the Innovation Meets Leadership podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Born. I would love for you to help us spread the word by leaving a review wherever you listen to podcasts so that other innovators like you can find us. Don't forget to check us out. We are on YouTube as well. And as you know, you're part of a global community. We have over 70 plus countries listening from around the world. Well, today my guest is Dave Sheets. Dave has spent more than 25 years in the publishing industry working with many top book publishers, distributors, and printers in the industry, followed by his own publishing service company working with independent authors. He has serviced clients in various areas like sales and marketing throughout his career, learning to actively listen to his clients and provide creative solutions for their needs. He is a self-described coach, and Dave works with publishing clients in addition to working with the local high school varsity football team as the assistant football coach. Dave excels in helping clients reach their highest potential every day. Welcome to the podcast, Dave.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So I just want to say that I've had the opportunity to get to know you over the last several months, and this is true. Your bio is just spot on. You are a wealth of information. You've been in this industry for a very long time. And so I would love for you just to talk a little bit about your backstory, how you got into the industry, and then kind of just catch us up to what are some of the main things you're working on today.
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to. My backstory is heading to college, not exactly knowing what I wanted to be when I grew up. And kind of going through journalism school, ended up there after bouncing around. And then I landed with a buddy of mine who was leading a publishing division, knew nothing about publishing, knew nothing about the book and magazine industry. And really just from that point on, learned through the School of Hard Knocks. I've always been on the business development side of things, helping, first off, publishing traditional publishers sell product, not only here in the States, but around the world. And then I got involved with book distribution and book printing. And I've really led a very cool professional life in the publishing area. Kind of probably unlike most people. Most people will stick kind of in one area of the publishing industry, and I've been blessed to have been able to be in every aspect of the industry, which today, as I work with independent authors, really lends itself well to them.
I love that. I love that story. And I want to talk a little bit about why should someone publish a book? I mean, I think that a lot of the people listening to this podcast are entrepreneurs, or they have a deep wealth of expertise in a certain area, but what's the power? What's the impact of somebody becoming an author?
Yeah, that's a great question. I work with entrepreneurs and business leaders and coaches and consultants every day. And I think, people know that they have a story. They also know that they have important things that they've learned throughout their careers that they can pass along. But many, many times they have no idea how to accomplish that. And so one of the things that we do is we try to make it really easy off the bat. We kind of give permission to not have to be an author to be an author, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to write your own book. And for a lot of people, you just see the weight lift off their shoulders when they go, oh gosh, I didn't know I didn't have to write it. You mean I can work with somebody that can do that with me? And so that's a really, really important thing for busy leaders, entrepreneurs to understand, is that there are tools and resources to help you get that message out. I'm in the content business. So a book or an ebook or an audiobook, they're all delivery mechanisms. They deliver that message. The words and the content are so important to get down because there's a couple of things that we see, or three things actually that we see. Number one, books give people credibility. So automatically, our culture assigns a new level of credibility to somebody who has a book. The second thing is that they open doors. So they open doors to larger audiences. So if you have a book, you tend to be asked to speak to larger and larger groups, which is exactly what you want to do. And then the third thing is that it brings new clients. So for a lot of our customers, our author customers, they are looking for ways to expand their business, and books are an incredibly powerful way to do that.
I love that. So, talk a little bit about because I think most people, when they think about publishing books, they're still thinking about kind of the traditional model where somebody, writes you a check and then you have to run around trying to figure out how you're going to get the book sold. Talk a little bit about what you do and how it's so different from that traditional publishing model.
Yeah, I'd love to. A lot of people think of publishing and they think of that traditional model. They go, they're like, well, I just want somebody else to kind of do everything for me and kind of invest in the process. And that's the right fit for some books, but it's not always the right fit for every book. And so, on the industry, you have a traditional publisher over here. They send a contract, they license your work, they work on it, they invest in it. But a lot of times authors have the kind of the mindset that, okay, I don't have to do anything else after that. And I think that the key thing to remember about traditional publishing is that they may have some doors that they can open that you can't get on your own. Maybe today is a whole different ballgame. But what they do bring is expertise. The challenge is that they also control the project. So for a lot of authors who need more control in what they're doing, you tend to lose a lot of control when you go through traditional publishing. So then all the way over on this side of the industry, you've got true self-publishing, which is where an author really tries to learn how to do everything on their own. They, from editing to design to layout, all of these different things. And the learning curve can be very, very steep. And it can take a long time. Now you still have full control over here, but the time is a factor. So it can take a long time to do it. It can also take a really short time too. And so our organization and organizations like us, professional services companies sit right in the middle. So, our clients have full control over projects, which is very important to a lot of our clients. The time frame is short, typically anywhere from 3 to 6 months from start to finish, even writing in the writing process. And so the control speed, and then investment is higher, of course, because you're investing in professional services, but your time to recoup that investment and the models that we show people and the strategies around that are uh, it just makes sense, especially if you as an author are going to be controlling most of your sales. That's where it really, really makes sense to work on the independent side of the industry.
Let's talk about that a little bit more because I think there's this nuance here, right? Of what happens when a traditional publisher is selling your book, and then what happens self-publishing, how that book is sold. There is a nuance or a difference there. Can you talk about that a little bit more and flesh that out for our listeners?
Sure. Yeah. With a traditional publisher, they've traditionally had relationships with retailers and those types of things. They have terms that have been in the past maybe more attractive to a retailer to buy books. And so that kind of has been the gatekeeper, is that relationship with the retail market. In the last 10, 15 years, 20 years, with the advent of Amazon and other online retail and other online tools, that gatekeeper status has become maybe a little bit less important. Well, it certainly has, because as an author, an independent author, you have the ability now to reach into some of those areas. So, you can get professional services, from editing to layout and design, all those types of things now as an independent author. But you can also get access to sales teams and marketing teams and all of the things that maybe would have set a traditional publisher apart in the past. I think where traditional publishers, really are a great fit is when you have a really large platform as an author, and you're trying to do specific things within the retail community that you might not be able to do as easily on the independent side, and where the publisher themselves is going to sell the bulk of the books. For entrepreneurs, speakers, coaches, people who are going to be in charge of most of their sales, abdicating some of that control is probably not where you want to go with traditional publishing. But the biggest hidden cost is the cost of actually acquiring your books. So with traditional publishing, a traditional publisher owns the right to sell those books back to you, and they do that at 2 or 3 or 4x the print cost, which is not unethical. It's their business model, but it means that it's way more expensive and it's a hidden cost that most authors don't think about. So if you're going to sell more, 80, 90% of your books on your end through speaking engagements and direct sales events and all those types of things, it makes a lot of sense to do everything on your own, control the process so that you also control the vast or the bigger portion of that net sale value.
So let's say that some of the listeners are thinking, okay, I'm all in. I've been thinking about this. I want to go ahead and take steps to, think more deeply about publishing a book, or maybe they've been working on a book and it's kind of, had a little trouble getting off the ground. What would you say are some things that they need to think about through the writing process and then the publishing process to really maximize the effectiveness of that book?
Yeah, great question. So 3 things I would mention. Number one, you've got to identify your target audience, and it's got to be very, very tight. I think you and I even talked about this. The tighter your target audience is, the better off you are. If you try to hit everybody, you're not going to hit anybody. And so it's really important to keep that target audience as clear and as tight as you can. Number 2 is identifying your capacity. So as a business entrepreneur or leader or whatever, what do you have the capacity to do? Do you have the capacity to pay somebody else to help you? If you don't, do you have the time to do it on your own? All of those things go into the publishing process. So you're looking at, how do I set aside time to write? How do I set aside time to learn everything? How do I set aside time for marketing and development and those types of things? So we're looking at audience capacity, and then just, do you have the wherewithal to financially be involved with this? So those are the 3 things that we really challenge our first time, author contacts, potential clients with those things. And if you can establish if you can understand those things, then you've got a really good start on the process itself.
I want to double click on the marketing piece of it. You and I have a mutual friend who we met through Jessica Lolly, and she loves you, Dave, sings your praises all the time to whoever will listen, which is so cool. And one of the things that, she kind of highlights, right, and especially whether you self publish or go through a traditional publisher, oftentimes the author themselves does not take enough time to think about how to market their book. They don't take
Yep.
enough time to think about how to move the book after it's written. And so, can you talk about what is the average number of books someone actually sells? And then, if you're thinking about publishing a book, what are some things that you should already be planning for before your book's even published?
Yeah. Good question. Yeah, it really comes down to, your platform. I mean, and a lot of authors will hear this and it's like, oh gosh, I hear, and here we go again, platform. But that's the ability for you to reach people. And it can come in many different shapes and sizes. It can be certainly social media. It can be websites. It can be blogs. It can be podcasts like this. It can be all of these different things that allows you to reach and touch people. And then, so that's incredibly important. Every author has to have that, whether or not you're traditionally published or independently published. Because if you can't reach people, then they don't know about your book. It may be the best book out there ever written on that subject, but if they don't know about it, they're never going to buy it. So that's incredibly important. I think, authors have to also remember that, it's a process. And so a first book is not always going to be, huge seller. Um, the best authors that are out there tend to have a series of books. Um, because what it's doing is it's building critical mass. So every time a new book comes out, it drags along what we call the backlist with it, because people are like, oh, I see this new book. Now I've got this. Oh, well, I didn't even know about this other book. And so it kind of is the rising tide. It brings up the sales of every book. And the more you do that, the more, more sales you get. Uh, it used to be that in traditional publishing, we would see books that would do, 25, 35, 50,000 units at a time. And even in traditional publishing these days, they're not seeing, most books are not hitting those numbers. I think the last I knew when I talked with some of my colleagues on the traditional side, you're looking at, 5 to 10,000 units. That's a pretty good seller at this point in time. I think there are a lot of independent authors out there. So if you took the aggregate or the average across the indie spectrum, the number is going to be a lot lower. And that's not because the books aren't as good. I think it's just because authors haven't embraced the idea of some of the things like platform and marketing and getting in front of people. This is a game where you have to self promote.
Hmm.
You really have to do that. And for a lot of authors that I talk to, they're like, well, I'm humble. I don't want to be, that's not me. I don't want to self promote. Well, those are the things you have to work yourself through. It's not about having an ego. That's
Right.
different. But it is about getting your book, your message. If you think your book is and your message is important, you have to talk about it, and people need to hear about that. And that's not being bragging. That is simply making people aware of the content that you have that's so important to you and is going to help them.
That's so wise. I even think there's a way to do that within your own personality. So, if you're not comfortable promoting yourself, maybe you can go live on LinkedIn with a friend and have them ask you questions. And then you just talk about what you love talking about. And so I think there's a number of different ways to do that to where you don't feel like you have to, just get out there and self promote. You can still self promote without feeling like it's self promotion.
Yeah. And that we're in the content business, but it's also the people business,
Mhm.
and people want to know people. People, they want to connect with people. And when you can get a connection, then they'll listen to you. And, so it's about just helping people get to know you. Sometimes some of the most successful authors out there that I know, when they get into social media, they're talking about goofy things. I mean, but it's, personal things that are kind of pulling back the curtain a little bit and allowing a reader to engage with and get to know that particular author. And that's what they want.
Mhm.
And when they feel like they know you a little bit, maybe they're on the inside a little bit, that's when they're telling all their friends about this author that they met and that they know and they're buddies with. And I mean, it's really interesting, the dynamics, I think the interpersonal dynamics of book and content and people.
Mhm. Dave, when I became a podcaster, I learned that there was this awesome community of podcasters and they all help each other out and they're just willing to give you anything you need, any contact, any knowledge. What would you say are the hidden benefits of becoming an author?
Well, you find a community. I think that's really huge. I think you hit it on the head. I'm involved with some groups now that would have never been a thing 15, 20 years ago. Groups where authors literally are coming together, they're sharing ideas, they're talking about what's been successful for them. Um, they want everybody to succeed. They want the independent side of the business to succeed. And I'm not I am an author, but that's not my calling. My calling is to help authors.
Mhm.
But it's fun to read even posts in some of these groups where, they're finding their best friends and people who understand them and get who they are and are willing to help them to succeed in the process. And I think, if anything, really, I mean, that's a really cool aspect of what's happening in the industry right now.
Yeah, I love that. What final thoughts would you have for our listeners today as they think about taking the journey to become an author?
Yeah, I would go back to the first thing, one of the first things I said, and that is that you don't have to be a writer to be an author. That's critically important. Take some of the weight off of this process. It can be very complicated out there. There are sharks, there are hidden hazards, it's a little bit like the Wild West. Do your research, and find people who we've been really blessed to get lots of referrals. A lot of our business comes through referrals because hopefully we've done a great job with our clients and they want other people to experience that as well. You'll find people that have referrals. And, I think for a lot of people, like building a custom home, I use this example all the time. You can hire, I mean, most people are not going to go out and build their own house. They're not going to, frame it up and do the plumbing, do the electricity, all these things on their own. They hire a general contractor, they hire experts who know what they're doing, that are more efficient, that are going to keep the costs down, that are going to give you an amazing end product. And that's what we do. We build books. And so hiring somebody to do all these things doesn't mean that you're less of an author. It just means you're more professional, I think.
Right.
And, so that's what I would encourage people to do is do some research, find somebody that can really help. Look at this as an investment from a marketing standpoint, and then just go for it. I think, you're never going to learn about publishing unless you get involved with publishing. I mean, there's lots of things you can read, but you just, until you do it, until you write, until you edit, until you are involved with that whole process, you're just never going to know. So, I'm always available for calls. I do 15-minute and 30-minute, kind of discovery sessions with authors all day long, and love it. I love hearing about projects. I love hearing about those types of things. And if I can help, I'm happy to do that. There's no charge for those initial meetings. Obviously, I'm just helping. That's why I jump on things like this, is I want to help people be able to communicate what's on their heart and what's part of their mission with other people.
I love that. How can people get connected with you?
Sure. So our website, we operate under a couple of different brand names, but the best website is believersbookservices.com. We've got some great testimonials on there. We talk a little bit about what we do. My email is Dave, really easy, Dave, Dave, at believersbookservices.com. And I'm happy to help. I'll probably send people a quick note giving them access to my calendar and say, just pick a time. Let's get together. So, we try to be very, we're just, we love what we do. So we're a little bit informal. We love it. Some of my best friends now are author clients that I've worked with. And, so hopefully we can serve, as many authors that, you come in touch with, or people who think they want to be an author. Happy to have that conversation.
That's awesome. Dave, thank you so much for your time today. This has been amazing.
Oh, you're welcome.
Well, to our listeners, thank you for joining the Innovation Meets Leadership podcast. Remember, don't just get out of the box, break the box and set it on fire. Let's go transform something.
Thank you for joining us for the Innovation Meets Leadership podcast. Be sure to subscribe to our show on iTunes. Follow us on Instagram or Facebook at Innovation Meets Leadership, and visit our site at innovationmeetsleadership.com for more innovation resources.
Hey, my new book is out, Set It on Fire, The Art of Innovation. Click on the link to learn more. And don't just get out of the box, break the box and set it on fire. Let's go transform something.